If you're over 60, airlines are withholding things they're required to give you for free. I'm Maria, 22 years as a flight attendant. Today, I'm giving you 17 things you can request on any flight at no charge that most seniors never know exist. The industry calls it service friction engineering, withholding services until you ask, because most people never do. I once watched a 68-year-old woman sit in knee pain for 5 hours. When I told her she could have had a better seat, a footrest, early deboarding, all free, she said, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" They don't. That's the design. Drop your age and last airline below. Hit subscribe, and let's change that. Here is what most senior travelers believe. They believe that the seat printed on their boarding pass is fixed, non-negotiable, and changing it will cost money. That belief costs older passengers enormous physical discomfort on every single flight. Here is what I know from the inside. Every aircraft operating a domestic or international flight carries a category of seats held in reserve until the gate closes. These are called operational buffer seats. They include aisle seats near the front, seats with extra legroom near exit rows on certain aircraft, and occasionally bulkhead seats with extended floor space. Flight attendants and gate agents have direct authority to reassign passengers to these seats before boarding is complete, at no charge, when a medical or mobility-related reason is provided. I personally witnessed a gate agent offer this to a passenger named Herbert, age 77, a retired cardiologist from Ohio. Herbert had a documented circulation condition. He had not mentioned it. When his wife quietly told me during boarding, I walked back to the gate, spoke to the agent, and Herbert was moved to a bulkhead row aisle seat, 3 rows from the front, at 0 cost. The seat had been sitting empty 30 seconds before the door closed. What you do, before boarding, approach the gate agent directly. Say these exact words: "I have a medical condition that affects my circulation and mobility. Is there any available aisle seating closer to the front of the aircraft I could be reassigned to?" You do not need documentation. You do not need a doctor's note for domestic flights. A verbal statement of medical need is sufficient under DOT accessibility guidelines. That sentence has changed the flight experience of more senior passengers than any single piece of advice I have ever given. This is one of the most requested items that passengers are most embarrassed to ask for. I want to address that directly. Every commercial aircraft in the United States carries a minimum of 3 to 6 seatbelt extenders on board. They are standard equipment. Requesting one is no different than requesting a cup of water. Flight attendants are trained to provide them without comment, without reaction, and without drawing attention to the request. I met a passenger named Rosemary, age 71, a retired school teacher from Georgia. She had avoided flying for 3 years because of anxiety around this exact issue. When she finally flew and quietly asked me for an extender before other passengers boarded, I handed it to her in under 20 seconds, said nothing except "absolutely," and moved on. She told me at the end of the flight it was the first time she had flown without anxiety in a decade. What you do: board early, which senior passengers are entitled to do, and before others fill the surrounding seats, quietly tell the nearest flight attendant, "Could I have a seatbelt extender, please?" That is the entire request. It will be handled privately, immediately, and without judgment every single time. Most senior travelers know pre-boarding exists. What they do not know is that they are entitled to request it even when it is not announced, even when the gate agent does not offer it, and even when the flight is running late. Under the Air Carrier Access Act, any passenger with a disability, including mobility limitations, balance issues, joint pain, cardiovascular conditions, or anxiety disorders, is entitled to pre-boarding accommodation upon request. Age alone does not qualify you, but the threshold for qualifying conditions is far lower than most passengers believe. Arthritis that slows your movement qualifies. A hip replacement qualifies. Difficulty navigating a crowded jet bridge qualifies. You do not need a diagnosis read aloud at the gate. I witnessed a situation with a passenger named Frank, age 73, a retired postal worker from Michigan. Frank had a hip replacement 18 months prior and walked with a slight but visible limp. He was waiting in the general boarding line when I came off the aircraft to assist with a gate issue. I asked him directly if he wanted pre-boarding. He said, "Am I allowed to?" Frank genuinely did not know. He had flown twice since his surgery, standing in the general line, gripping the seatbacks to keep his balance, while other passengers bumped past him with carry-ons. What you do. Arrive at your gate 60 minutes before departure. When a gate agent is visible and not actively processing another passenger, approach and say, "I have some mobility limitations and I would like to request pre-boarding assistance, please." Write that sentence down. Save it in your phone. It is your key to boarding before the rush, settling without pressure, and placing your items in the overhead bin before the aircraft fills. This is the most underused free service in every major airport in the United States. And the reason senior travelers do not use it is not lack of availability. It is the belief that wheelchair assistance is for people who really need it, meaning people in worse condition than themselves. Wheelchair and electric cart service is available to any passenger who requests it. You do not need to be unable to walk. You need to find walking long distances through a terminal uncomfortable, tiring, or stressful. That description fits the majority of travelers over 65 navigating a major hub airport. Atlanta's main terminal is over a mile from end to end. Dallas-Fort Worth spans 5 terminals connected by a rail system. O'Hare has concourses that take 20 minutes to walk at a normal pace. These distances, under time pressure, with carry-on luggage after a connecting flight, are genuinely taxing. A passenger named Constance, age 69, a retired nurse from Arizona, told me she had missed a connecting flight the previous year because she had underestimated the distance between her arrival gate and her departure gate at Chicago O'Hare. She had not requested cart assistance because she felt she did not need a wheelchair. She walked. She missed the flight. She was rebooked 4 hours later. What you do. When booking your flight, call the airline directly after completing your reservation. Ask to add a wheelchair or cart assistance request to your booking under your passenger profile. This flags your arrival to the ground team at every airport on your itinerary. Alternatively, approach any airline customer service desk immediately upon arrival and say, "I would like to request wheelchair or cart assistance to my gate, please." The service is free. The staff are trained for this, and it is available to anyone who asks. On flights over 3 hours, most major carriers stock additional pillows and blankets beyond what is distributed during boarding. They are kept in overhead compartment bins near the galley or in storage panels at the front and rear of the aircraft. They are not offered proactively because offering them to every passenger would exhaust the supply, but they are available upon request until supply runs out. And senior passengers who ask early almost always receive one. I observed a passenger named Walter, age 76, a retired engineer from Pennsylvania, attempt to sleep through a 5-hour flight using the tiny airline pillow against a window he could not fully lean against due to his height. He was miserable for the entire flight. When I came by with the beverage cart, I noticed him repositioning for the 4th time and asked if he would like an additional pillow and a blanket. His face changed completely. He asked me, "I can just ask for that?" "Yes, Walter, you absolutely can." What you do. Shortly after takeoff and the seatbelt sign turns off, press your call button or catch a flight attendant during the first cabin walkthrough. Say, "When you have a moment, could I have an extra pillow and a blanket, please?" Early in the flight, before other passengers make the same request, you will almost always receive both. This is not a premium service. It is a standard inventory item. You are simply claiming what was always available to you. Most senior travelers experience the worst part of any flight in the final 10 minutes. The scramble to retrieve carry-on bags, the crush of passengers pushing from behind, the rush through the jet bridge before the connecting flight closes. And most of them endure it unnecessarily because they do not know that early deboarding assistance can be arranged before the plane ever leaves the ground. Early deboarding, meaning you exit before the general cabin is released, is available to passengers with mobility concerns, connection pressure, or documented medical need. It is coordinated by the lead flight attendant, and in most cases requires nothing more than a quiet conversation at the beginning of the flight. A passenger named Harriet, age 74, a retired social worker from North Carolina, had a 45-minute connection at Denver with a gate change she discovered mid-flight. She had not requested any special assistance. She was in row 24. She deplaned 35th, took 12 minutes to reach the new gate, and was told the door had closed 90 seconds earlier. She spent 6 hours at Denver waiting for the next available flight. When I tell this story to senior travelers, the response is always the same. Why didn't anyone tell me I could ask for that? You can, right now, on your next flight. This secret costs senior travelers hundreds of dollars in airport food purchases every single year, because most of them simply do not know it exists. Every major carrier operating flights over 2 hours offers a range of special meal options that can be requested at the time of booking or up to 24 hours before departure at no additional charge. These include low-sodium meals, diabetic-friendly meals, low-fat meals, gluten-free meals, soft meals for passengers with dental concerns, and bland meals for passengers with digestive sensitivity. These are not economy class upgrades. They are medical accommodation meals available on the same ticket you already purchased. A passenger named Gloria, age 70, a retired accountant from Texas, was a type 2 diabetic who had been purchasing food at airport terminals for years because she assumed the airline meals were not compatible with her dietary management. When I explained the diabetic meal option to her mid-flight, she stared at me for a full 5 seconds. You are telling me I could have been ordering this the entire time? Yes, Gloria, every flight, at no charge. Very few senior travelers know this service exists because airlines do not market it to adults. It is modeled on the unaccompanied minor program and provides a dedicated airport staff member who meets you at check-in, escorts you through security, accompanies you to your gate, stays until boarding is complete, and coordinates your arrival assistance at the destination airport. It is called different things by different airlines. American Airlines calls it Meet and Assist. Delta offers a similar service through their accessibility desk. United provides it through their special services team. At most major airports, it is available to any passenger who self-identifies as needing navigational or cognitive assistance through the airport experience. I watched this service transform the travel experience of a passenger named Eugene, age 79, a retired pharmacist from Missouri who had early-stage memory concerns. His daughter had almost convinced him to stop flying alone. With Meet and Assist activated on his booking, Eugene was met at the curb by a staff member, guided through every step of the airport process, and delivered to a seat without a single moment of confusion or stress. He flew independently for 3 more years because of a free service his family had not known existed. This is one of the least known and most medically important items on this list. Passengers with medications that require refrigeration, including insulin, certain biologics, and temperature-sensitive cardiac medications, are entitled to request galley refrigerator storage for those medications during flight. Flight attendants are required under federal aviation medical guidelines to accommodate medication storage requests from passengers with documented medical need. Most senior travelers traveling with insulin, for example, keep it in their carry-on bag at cabin temperature for the entire flight without knowing that refrigerated storage is available and free 3 feet away in the galley. A passenger named Marilyn, age 66, a retired registered nurse from Minnesota, and yes, a nurse who did not know this, had been traveling with her insulin at cabin temperature for years. When I informed her of galley storage availability mid-flight, she looked at me and said, "I taught patients about insulin storage for 30 years, and I did not know to ask for this on a plane." The knowledge gap is not about intelligence. It is about a system that assumes you know to ask. Connecting flights are where senior travel most frequently breaks down. Tight connections, gate changes, unfamiliar terminals, confusing signage, long distances, and a passenger who is already tired from the first flight combine into a perfect environment for missed connections, unnecessary fees, and enormous stress. What most senior travelers do not know is that gate agents at major hub airports can and do provide direct escort service between connecting gates for passengers who request it. This is separate from wheelchair service. It is a walking escort, a staff member who meets you at your arrival gate and walks with you to your connecting gate, handling any questions, gate changes, or obstacles along the way. A passenger named Leonard, age 72, a retired high school principal from Virginia, missed a connection at Houston's Bush Intercontinental Airport despite arriving 40 minutes ahead of his connecting departure. He had misread the terminal map, taken the wrong tram direction, and spent 18 minutes going the wrong way before realizing his error. He missed his flight. He was rebooked for the following morning. He spent the night in a hotel at his own expense. At his connecting gate, there had been a gate agent specifically assigned to connection assistance for that wave of arriving flights. Leonard had walked past the desk without stopping, because he did not know what it was for. This one is not about comfort, it is about safety. And it surprises most passengers when I tell them it is something they can and should ask for individually. The safety demonstration given at the beginning of every flight is legally required and professionally delivered, but it is also fast, group-oriented, and designed for passengers who are already familiar with the content. Passengers who have questions about their specific oxygen mask type, about the seat cushion flotation device under their exact seat, about the brace position relative to their physical condition or mobility limitation, are absolutely entitled to ask a flight attendant for an individual demonstration or clarification before the flight reaches cruising altitude. I have given dozens of individual safety briefings to senior passengers over my career, and not a single one of those passengers was being dramatic or difficult. They were being responsible. A passenger named Beatrice, age 75, a retired physical therapist from Colorado, had a shoulder mobility limitation that made her concerned about the overhead pull motion for the oxygen mask. She asked me quietly after the general demonstration. I walked her through an alternative technique that worked with her range of motion. She thanked me. She flew more confidently for the rest of that trip. Most senior travelers check bags and then wait at the baggage carousel, sometimes for 30 minutes or more, without knowing that priority baggage delivery is something that can be requested, in many cases at no charge. Priority baggage tags, which cause your luggage to be loaded last and unloaded first from the aircraft hold, are typically sold as a premium service or included with elite status. But for passengers who have documented mobility concerns or who are traveling with medical equipment, priority tagging can be requested at check-in as an accessibility accommodation, free of charge. A passenger named Ruth, age 68, a retired pediatrician from Maryland, had been waiting an average of 35 minutes at baggage claim on every flight for 3 years because of her knee replacement. She had been standing on a hard terminal floor, unable to sit without losing sight of the carousel, in considerable pain. When her daughter called the airline ahead of Ruth's next trip and specifically requested priority baggage as a mobility accommodation, Ruth's bag appeared within 7 minutes of her reaching baggage claim. Her daughter told me it was the first flight in years that had not ended in pain. What you do at the check-in counter before your bag is tagged, say to the agent, "I have a mobility condition and extended standing is difficult for me. Is there any possibility of a priority baggage accommodation on this flight?" At many airlines, particularly on routes where this request is not commonly made. The agent will simply add a priority tag. It takes 10 seconds and costs nothing. The worst outcome is that they say no. The best outcome is that you spend 3 minutes at baggage claim instead of 35. Flight attendants are required to assist any passenger who cannot safely stow their carry-on luggage due to physical limitation. This is not a favor. It is a federal safety requirement. A bag improperly stowed is a hazard to every passenger on that aircraft. Assisting passengers in stowing their bags safely is part of the flight attendant's required pre-departure checklist.